start now. Thank you for joining. Thank you for being here. Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where we are. My name is Franziska Seufert. I'm project coordinator at the Council of the Baltic Sea States, CBSS in short, Secretariat in Stockholm. And on behalf of the CBSS, I want, of course, to warmly welcome you to the Baltic Sea Youth Dialogue 2021. Meeting you here and now is our kickoff, so to say, our first activity of this, meaning the 8th edition of the Baltic Sea Youth Dialogue. So thank you for your interest, thank you for being here, because without you this wouldn't be possible. And of course we want to delve into the topic directly and meet the experts, hear a lot of new things. But let me keep the suspense for a tiny moment and introduce to you quickly the Council of the Baltic Sea States and the Baltic Sea Youth Dialogue, so that you know what you ventured into. And I can tell you a bit, starting with that the Council of the Baltic Sea States was established in 1992, so having its 30th anniversary coming up. The Council of the Baltic Sea States is an intergovernmental organization and a political forum for regional cooperation consisting of 11 member states, that is Denmark, Estonia, Finland, Germany, Iceland, Latvia, Lithuania, Norway, Poland, Russia and Sweden, as well as a representative from the European Union. The Council takes a global perspective for regional challenges, and this can be politically and practically translating international agreements and goals into regional and cooperation and actions on the ground, always aiming to foster collaboration and trust. And the Secretariat has the task to support the Council and the so-called CBSS Committee of Senior Officials, which are the representatives, so to say, when it comes to more day-to-day actions. And the CBSS has 3 long-term priorities: regional identity, sustainable and prosperous region, as well as safe and secure region. All activities undertaken by the CBSS are to further these as objectives. And then there are several thematic units and teams working on specific issues. Each of the units on the priorities, of course, work thematically on specific areas, like, for example, the regional identity unit works with education or youth, which brings us to the Baltic Sea Youth Dialogue, for example. And what is the BSYD? As you know, it is an event for you, young people who are interested in Baltic Sea region affairs, politics, developments, communities, people, and more on historic, political, societal issues of common concern. For the 8th year in a row now, funded by the German Federal Foreign Office and organized by the CBSS, sometimes with a partner depending on what or where the dialogue takes place. The BSYD aims to bring international cooperation and dialogue about intercultural peer dialogue on regional and identity building topics, fosters cross-border communication, intercultural understanding. And the project wants to connect you so that you can be in dialogue, exchange your views, have learning opportunities, a lot of fun, of course, and a mobility opportunity, usually, and of kind, at least this year. This year's topic is, of course, best known by you. Looking forward, looking back, 30 years of collaboration in the Baltic Sea region. And maybe you have drawn the connection to why this is from one of the other words and slides I showed you. So we want you to hope that you will consider what life in the region brings about in the next years while learning from the past. So basically learn from and engage with these great speakers that we have and consider what do you think about or wish and believe to happen or want to see happen in the region going forward. So without further ado, let me introduce to you Adrian Bucałowski, working at the Civil Protection Department and National Headquarters of the State Fire Service in Poland, who will start off. The screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Franziska, and good evening, dobry wieczór, hello, cześć to everyone who joined today's session. As Franziska introduced me, my name is Adrian, and I work in the national headquarters of the State Fire Service, which is, let's say, the Warsaw-based central headquarters of the Polish authority, which is responsible for managing the network of professional and volunteer rescue services responding to day-to-day emergencies and major disasters in Poland, having also quite a lot of experience in responding to disasters worldwide. I will start sharing my presentation now. Yeah, hopefully you can see the very first slide now. Yeah. Okay. Today I would like to introduce you to the risks that threatens us, that threatens world and threatens the Baltic Sea region. And I would like to introduce you to the international cooperation activities in the field that enable us to be more resilient to the risk we have identified. But I decided that I will start my presentations with telling you a little bit about my personal milestones that steered my career choices, and I hope that they will in some way inspire also you. So I was born in 1985, and in 2004 I moved to Warsaw and started my studies at the Warsaw University. I graduated from the European studies, so not from fire service and so on. But in 2006, together with my friends, we established a non-governmental organization and we volunteered as youth projects facilitators. So we established an organization, and its name was Societas Matura, Mature Societies, and we decided that we would like to promote the international mobility. We want to promote higher education in less privileged areas, especially in the countryside of Poland, but also in the countrysides of other European countries. So we have undertaken a lot of international activities, international workshops that gathered together young people from different countries, just like today we are able to gather together. In 2007, I had a fire at my home. It was nothing really serious. No one was injured, and there were not major economic losses. But this fire made me interested in the fire service. In 2008, I did my Erasmus. I was doing my Erasmus in Finland at Tampere University. But I decided that on one weekend I will go from Turku to Stockholm with a ferry trip. It was actually the time when I was thinking what I would like to do in the future. And I started Googling about the ferry I was traveling. The name of the ferry was Mariella. And when I Googled it, I found out that Mariella was the very first ferry that arrived to the scene of the Estonia ferry disaster in 1994. As you might know, it was one of the biggest disasters that has ever taken place at the Baltic Sea. More than 800 people lost their lives during that disaster. And actually, Mariella was the very first ship that arrived at the scene of the disaster. And you know, the personnel of the ferry picked up 15 survivors from the water, and also the ferry was used as a helicopter platform to transport further 11 people from the water using helicopters. So it inspired me to get involved into, let's say, international assistance in case of disasters. And that steered me to beginning of the work in the State Fire Service of Poland, in its international division in 2010. The State Fire Service is actually part of, let's say, the civil protection sector. I will be talking a lot about civil protection sector today. So first of all, I would like to actually answer you, what does the civil protection sector mean? So in narrow understanding, the civil protection sector consists of rescue services. There might be very different approaches to rescue services depending on the country you live in. There might be professional and volunteer rescue services. There might be rescue services, public or private one, just like the one which are established, like fire brigades established in the major industrial plants or at the airports. There can be rescue services not that involve also youth activities, just like it is in Poland. We have volunteer fire brigades, and plenty of them have youth fire teams within them that gather people aged 13 to 18, and we actually have 80,000 members of such youth teams in the volunteer fire brigades. Civil protection is also about the wider administration, international, national, regional, and local. So the administration at all levels that is managing the risk of disasters and day-to-day emergencies. So these are mainly city mayors, local, regional governors, or even prime ministers, different authorities that are subordinated to them, that work in, let's say, the 4 phases of the disaster management cycle. These 4 phases of the disaster management cycle are prevention, when we try to decrease the risk of the disaster we might expect. Preparedness, so the activities towards being better prepared when the disaster strikes us. Response to disasters, and the recovery of disasters. But if you try to think a little bit wider about the civil protection, you can include also academic, scientific, and research entities. We cannot work without knowledge. Firefighters need new tools. They need methodologies. We need to understand the risk using the expert knowledge. Because of that, involvement of such entities is so crucial. We can think about civil society organization in wider context. It was especially visible during the pandemics. Many people, which were, let's say, present in their houses in the very first phases of the pandemics, required help of very different governmental and non-governmental society organizations that enabled them, for example, to provide the food, medicines, or any other assistance that was required at the time. We can also use the companies as a civil protection entities. They can establish the fire brigades, but they can also arrange a lot of raising awareness activities, also as a part of their social corporate social responsibility. Finally, every one of us can be actually a part of the civil protection, as we can protect ourselves, protect our families, can also impact the level of safety and security of our neighbors. What threatens us? As you can see, it's a big problem. Based on the United Nations report, and you will find a link to this report in the very end of my presentations, just between 2000 and 2019, 1,200,000 people died as a result of disasters. 4 billion people have been affected by effects of disasters. To be affected by effect of disaster does not only mean to be injured. It also means that, for example, your psychological stability has been decreased as a result of a disaster. You lost your home, you have been displaced, you lost your income, the company you work for bankrupted as a result of a disaster. So to be affected by disaster is a very wide meaning. And finally, the value of economic losses, $3 trillion just between 2000 and 2019. And here I'm talking only about natural disasters. So just a part of the disasters that may threaten us. As you might know, we can divide disasters into natural, but also the man-made disasters that come from, for example, technological threats, or, for example, malicious activities of the people. Top disaster risks in the European Union. So these are the risks that have been reported by the 27 EU countries and for the European Commission. So each and every European country is required to send to the European Commission the summary of its national risk assessment every few years, and based on this assessment, we can find the disasters that are repeated most by the national authorities. So floods, extreme weather events, heat waves, cold waves, storms, industrial accidents, nuclear accidents, and forest fires. These are the top 5 risks which are mentioned by the European countries. Other risks that are also very relevant and high, let's say, in the agenda of the national authorities. These are epidemics, which we know very well now, but these are also epizootics and epiphytotics, which we know a little bit less about. Epizootics, these are diseases among animals, and epiphytotics, these are diseases among plants. Seismic events, critical infrastructure disruptions, cyber threats, terrorism. Maybe you don't know the meaning of the critical infrastructure. So critical infrastructure, these are objects, but also services that are important for the, let's say, the continuity of the functioning of the state. It can be, for example, objects and services related to the electricity, related to the transportations, related to the functioning of rescue services. So it's a very wide understanding of this critical infrastructure meaning. The same report, based on national risk assessment, and I will provide you also with the link to that report, shows us some trends relevant to disasters and that might change the landscape of disasters in the future. So first of all, we have climate change, which results in more frequent extreme weather events. Then Northern Europe is expected to experience decreased ice cover and higher temperatures, in particular in the Arctic, as well as more rainfall and floods. However, climate change impacts will be felt particularly strongly in the Southern Europe, where an increase of extreme heat, water scarcity, drought, wildfires, and agricultural losses is forecast. Technological development changes the face of man-made risks. So we are very much dependent on the internet now. But as you know, the internet can be hacked. We can easily lose electricity. We can easily lose, any other critical services that enable us to live, just because we are dependent on the internet. Urbanization increases vulnerability to disasters. The projection shows that by 2050, 80% of the people will be living in urban areas, in cities, towns, and suburbs. But let's say the human expansion towards urban areas, I mean, the expansion of the urban areas provides us with some new threats. For example, we are building a lot of urban areas near the coastline, which is prone to coastal floods. We need to expand. We need to build new buildings, for example, at the industrial sites, close to the industrial plants that, for example, use dangerous substances. Finally, heat waves. It's much more difficult to survive the heat wave in an urban area. And because of that, many people die, not in the countryside, but they die in the urban area when the temperature is noticeably, the feeling of the temperature is noticeably higher. Environmental degradation and aging of societies versus resilience. Environmental degradation, in particular damage to ecosystems and biodiversity loss, is heightening the risk of disasters. Ecosystems provide multiple services and benefits, such as regulation of climate, such as water retention, flood control, landslide prevention, coastal prevention. If we lose the balance of the environment, we are much more prone to disaster. Finally, environmental degradation can also lead us to new risks, just as infectious diseases. And we can see the example now. The problem that, the pandemic arrived is that, the human settlements have been developed very close to the wildlife areas, to the animals. We don't know, we can very easily transfer viruses and bacteria from animals to the people, just because we are very close to the wildlife areas, which has never appeared in the past. Finally, geopolitical tension, higher activity of the diverse groups reduce the sense of the security. So we are still prone to malicious activity of the people, and because of that, our level of safety and security can be decreased. These are disasters, but we also have to know the day-to-day risks that threatens us. A lot of people die in traffic accidents, fires. In Poland, around 500 people die because of fire annually. Carbon monoxide intoxication, it's not really relevant to all the countries of the Baltic Sea region, but for example, in Poland, it is still a big issue that a lot of people die because of the poisoning with carbon monoxide, not related to fires, drownings, crimes. These are just examples, of course. Of course, there are many more day-to-day risks you might experience. But we are here today in very international community. And because of that, we can think about how can international cooperation actually help in building disaster resilience. First of all, mutual assistance. So the countries can help each other, then can help each other, for example, via multilateral frameworks. Probably the most important multilateral framework in Europe is developed by the European Union, and it's called the Union Civil Protection Mechanism. And since 2002, when the mechanism was implemented, more than 500 times the countries requested assistance from other countries. But the mutual assistance can also be provided based on bilateral agreements. For example, Poland has bilateral agreements with all neighboring states, all 7 neighboring states, and we have developed, the guidelines of how to mutually assist each other, both in case of major disaster, but for example, also in case of minor emergencies taking place in the border area. We can have international capacity building initiatives. The Europe has a lot of experience in land-based and maritime exercises. We have organized many workshops and trainings. In fact, the Baltic Sea region is one of the leaders in this area. we are conducting a lot of scientific and research activities that provides new tools, new methodologies, both for responders, for firefighters, for paramedics, but also for the managers of the civil protections. Finally, we can develop and we can also implement international commitments related to disasters and day-to-day emergencies. The most known commitment, which is the United Nations commitment, so for the whole world, is the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, which provides goals and activities and actions to be taken by the world, by all the countries between 2015 and 2013. We have a lot of experience in international environmental and humanitarian law. Finally, we have a commitments and have also a lot of documents in our Northern Europe region, so in the Baltic Sea region. And one of the examples is the action plan of the Council of the Baltic Sea States. As Franziska already told, we have 3 long-term priorities that were decided in 2014, as I remember, as priorities of the cooperation under the framework of the Council of the Baltic Sea States. And one of these priorities is a safe and secure region. And actually, on the left side of the slide, you can see the actions relevant to the safe and secure regions that were put into CBSS action plan with its current version for 2021-2025. And in my presentation today, I'm actually focusing just on this very first part of this actions related to the safe and secure region, so promoting cooperation among civil protection stakeholders. But please also know that the cooperation of the Council of the Baltic Sea States within safe and secure region also relates to the cooperation in the area of trafficking in human beings, protecting children and youth at risk, strengthening collaboration with the Baltic Sea region border control, Baltic Sea region task force on organized crime, and also the cooperation of prosecutors general and prosecutors on environmental crime. But in this area, I will not focus on this on these subjects. I will tell you a little bit more about the cooperation in the civil protection area. The framework of the cooperation within the Council of the Baltic Sea States is provided by so-called civil protection network. So the network of the authorities from 11 member states of the Council of the Baltic Sea States, which origin goes back to 2003, when there was a very first project in all the countries called Euro-Baltic program for the civil protection in the Baltic Sea region. So plenty of authorities from the countries decided that they will together develop joint exercises of rescue services, joint workshops related to the different risks and taking place in different countries of the Council of the Baltic Sea States. The Euro-Baltic developed awareness raising campaigns for the societies too. So that was, let's say, the beginning of our cooperation. And how do we cooperate nowadays? We are meeting annually at the Directors General meeting. So Directors General, these are the leaders of the national civil protection authorities, and my chief, so the chief commandant of the State Fire Service, is the Polish Director General for Civil Protection, and he annually meets with his counterparts from other CBSS countries on these meetings. Senior experts meetings between the civil protection experts of the CBSS, and I have a pleasure to be a member of this group. We are organizing presidency workshops. So as you might know, there is a rotating presidency within the Council of the Baltic Sea States that lasts for 1 year. Currently, Norway holds the presidency. And the countries that are holding presidency are organizing the workshops related to their priority field relevant to civil protection. We are also meeting at the Baltic Excellence Program. So it's actually the kind of a training that takes place around every 2 years in different parts of the Europe, which is foreseen for, let's say, the leaders from the civil protection authorities to improve their managerial skills, their crisis management skills. So it's kind of a training that is very much visible among the stakeholders of our community. And finally, we are cooperating through projects. The next slide, I actually don't really want to focus on this slide, but it relates to, let's say, the main guiding document of our cooperation. So the joint position on enhancing cooperation in civil protection area, which was adopted by the Directors General for Civil Protection of the Council of the Baltic Sea States in 2017, and quite recently revised. And as you can see on the slide, it provides 7 priorities of our cooperation. But rather than naming these priorities, I rather want to show you the achievements of our cooperation. So what we have achieved so far through projects, through workshops, through other kinds of activities between the rescue services, between let's say, the crisis management authorities in the Baltic Sea region. So first of all, thanks to all the stakeholders involved, we assessed the risks that are relevant to the Baltic Sea region, and we also exchanged the experience on our preparedness. We exchanged the methodologies on how to assess whether the country is prepared or not for such a risk, for the disaster, how to assess the technical, administrative, and financial capability of the country to manage the risk of disasters that have been identified. In one of our recent projects called Cascade, we launched the Climate Risk Preparedness Toolbox for cities and for municipalities. So we have provided, let's say, a database of different documents, curricula, training materials, for example, for city mayors. They can be used, for them, for their personnel, to extend their knowledge and to have, let's say, more expertise when making any decisions on how to, what kind of investment to make in order to prevent a disaster, or another decision that is relevant to managing the disaster risk. We trained more than 100 experts in leadership skills in this Baltic Leadership or Baltic Excellence Program, as I mentioned to you. We identified fire and rescue practitioner requirements and needs and connected them with relevant innovative technologies. In one of the projects, we were talking to fire and rescue practitioners. We asked them what, in your opinion, is required to better respond to different emergencies. We made a brief reports about them. We created an online platform about it, and we decided that we will communicate this platform to different technology providers that can submit their solutions, that they can advertise their solutions that will be, answering the needs of the practitioners, of end users, firefighters, rescuers, and managers of civil protection. Finally, we explored the role of children and youth in building a resilience by having different projects that analyze, the different good practices in European countries on how to engage youth and children in building a resilience to disasters and to day-to-day emergencies. Finally, we organized numerous rescue exercises at land and at sea, and we helped each other many times. And in the very middle of the slide, you can actually see a photo The photo was taken by Polish firefighters in Sweden, and on the top of the bridge you can see the Swedish citizens greeting Polish firefighters in 2018 when Poland decided to help Sweden fighting forest fires. I mean, seeing this Polish flag with heart inside, it was very encouraging for our firefighters. When they came back to our headquarters, they were really impressed, and it's a motivation that lasts for long, because just like me, you usually work on the documents, you develop documents, it's kind of also the bureaucracy, but but what we want to achieve is to have this really good examples of the motivation, when we actually can use the documents we develop, the procedures we develop, the teams we prepared for international deployment, but we can actually use them to help other countries, and to have such kind of pictures. It's so really motivating. You can see also the photo of one of our exercises with the Polish fire trucks and also the fire trucks of the German Federal Agency for Technical Relief, Technisches Hilfswerk. I think I'm not German speaking. Franziska can probably improve me in my language, but actually, the cooperation between Polish, German, but also the cooperation between all other countries of the Council of the Baltic Sea state is very tangible and very relevant. My final slide. A little bit not related to what I was talking to you before, but I wanted to share it with you. Think globally, act locally. These are two photos which were taken by me in one of the projects I organized a few years ago. It was also an international project with more than 30 people from different European countries. The project was about promoting civil volunteering in European countries. And what I decided, the project was taking place in Poland, and I decided to bring all of participants of this project to the very small village in the very countryside of Poland. The village is Smyków, near Kielce. Polish participants of the of our today's seminar surely know where Kielce is. And we are talking about the village of 400 400 inhabitants, but the village is very special. It has volunteer fire brigade, and its volunteer fire brigades has the girls youth team in it. And the girls, I mean, they are doing very well. They are taking part in the sport competitions, and they are doing so well that they managed to to be sent to the International Olympic Games taking place every 5 years in one of the world countries. Actually, they managed to go to France when there was a Olympic Games in France. So very small village, less privileged area, but very active, very motivated people that work in the civil protection, that improve themselves, and they gather together, to spend time in a very creative and very useful manner. And I was trying to find out what's the reasoning behind their success, and I found out that the coach of this team, of this girls youth fire team, he is a former prison guard, and he told me, Adrian, I have already seen too much in my life. What happens with young people if you do not offer them any other activities than school, So I decided, okay, in my village, I will establish this youth fire team, that I will gather these people. They will not spend the time, just, doing nothing or doing the useless thing. They really want to be together. They really want to spend time together. They can do something really nice and be very motivated. And as you can see, it was a mutual motivation. So on the one hand, participants of the project I was taking part in, they were very motivated seeing these young girls, but also these young girls were very impressed that, you know, the people from so many countries arrived at their village and, you know, decided to, you know, to talk to them and spend the time with them. So think globally, act locally, look for leaders in your communities, be a leader of your community, not only in the civil protection, not only in civil volunteering, but try to do something good for your community, as you should think globally, but you should start thinking, acting locally. Finally, just if you would like to extend the knowledge about what I was talking today, here are some links, also links to the reports I based my statistic today about. Finally, the links to the Council of the Baltic Sea States, and also links to the policy area secure of the EU strategy for the Baltic Sea region. So it's another format in which actually most of the civil protection network stakeholders also participate. So thank you very much. Yeah, that's all for me from now. I'm looking forward to our further part of the sessions.
Thank you so much, Adrian. That was so interesting. We cannot hear it, but I'm sure there is thunderous applause. I would suggest to all of you to maybe refill your coffee or tea or drinks so that we have a few minutes before we listen to Stephanie Young from the Swedish Defence University. So if we can have you all back in 5 minutes at 48, that would be great. Thank you. I hope you all grabbed a new drink so that we can now welcome Stephanie Young from the Swedish Defence University. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's exciting to be here, to see and be with you, the future leaders. My name is Stephanie Young, and I work at the Center for Security here at the Swedish Defence University. And I will be talking a little bit more about how can we build this common societal security culture. And in order to be able to do that, we have to understand what we mean by societal security. And here you see society, that's part of the equation here, security. So if we move on, there we go. So my first question to you is, when you hear the word societal security, what does it mean for you? It maybe means living in peace, not having being occupied. Maybe means living in a place where you're not tortured. Or perhaps it means the ability to go to school, to get proper medical health care for you and your loved ones. Maybe it means also the right to be able to love who you want to. It also maybe means living in a clean environment. But I also wonder, when we think about societal security, what does it mean for your country? So there are many different ways we think about societal security on different levels. And so when we're talking about countries, we often think about protecting the border and the territory, dealing with terrorism, invasion, also about securing energy supplies so that we have energy to heat and cool our homes, to run our dishwashers, our refrigerators. It's also about securing information and security services so that we can use our cell phones and we have satellite and we can watch our Netflix. Also the state is in charge of making sure that we have secure transportation systems, making sure that we can get around by public transportation, by cars, by airplanes, and that all of those support our services so that we get our mail, that we get our goods from other countries. It's also about food and water supplies so that we have enough to eat and drink. And also that we are healthy physically, that the people in our community have access to health care and medical care. And also too, as Adrian was talking about, fire, rescue, and emergency services, that if our house starts to burn, that we know somebody's going to come and help us put it out. Or if somebody has a heart attack, that we know somebody's going to come and provide medical services. But also too, there's some things that we maybe don't think about when we talk about societal security, but it also is about the judicial system and making sure that we have law and order so that people who commit crimes are have the right to a court and also receive a punishment if necessary. But also societal security is actually about making sure that we have a healthy economy and finance. It's also about making sure that we have education, that we have access to it. So no matter what kind of conditions we live in, we always have the opportunity to further develop ourselves and have opportunities to develop. And it's also about governance and our political systems, that we have leaders that represent us and that we have faith and trust in their decisions. And of course, a very topical issue now with the Glasgow Climate Summit is the environment. And also this is the foundation for everything. If we don't have a stable ecological system that provides us with clean water and food, then all the other things are irrelevant, more or less. So the topic for today's session is looking forward, looking back. And I think it might be interesting for those of you who didn't live 30 years ago, like myself, is to maybe give you an idea about really what societal security looked like 30 years ago. So actually 30 years ago was just when the Berlin Wall was actually being torn down. So it was now actually November in 1989 when the East German government announced that East German citizens could visit West Germany and West Berlin. And that was a huge thing. This freedom of movement, something that we take for granted. And now during the pandemic, we perhaps understand that freedom isn't always something that is guaranteed or just assumed. Also, soon after that event with the Berlin Wall was the Violet Revolution in Prague, in Czechoslovakia. It was actually a group of students who protested against the Soviet government, and it was actually the youth and students who pushed forward these changes and demanded more freedom of speech, freedom of movement. And actually 30 years ago, I was a teenager and I grew up in the United States. And in some parts of the United States at that time, it was still a criminal act to be a homosexual. So we have come a long way, but we can't take these things for granted. Societal security thrives on diversity and critical thinking. This is how we find new and innovative ways to make our society stronger, safer, and more secure. So basically, when we talk about societal security, one of the things we often really, what is worth protecting? What is worth defending? So societal security, the key is, what do we deem worthy to protect and defend? And what does that really mean? So simply it means that we ourselves can decide how we live, who we love, what we believe in, what religious practices, what churches, what synagogues, what mosques we go to, and also the freedom to think and say what we want. Many of these things seem very obvious, but it relies on the fact that we have free elections, that we have trust in our politicians and the legislation that they make, that the media is free and diverse, so that we have many different voices. In short, freedom of choice, trust, and democracy, these are the foundation of a strong and open society, which is safe and secure. So just to give you a few statistics here, unfortunately, human rights and democracy are under threat today. The past year has seen a decline. According to The Economist, 8.4% of the world's population, 23 countries in the world, can be considered as pure democracies. And by pure democracies, they mean fundamental political freedoms and human rights, free elections, government and parliament are able to function properly, that the media is independent and diverse, that the economy is stable, that there's an independent legal system, and that there are little or no foreign influence over these government and media. Oh, and one thing more, sorry. What I wanted to say about this was that actually another thing they pointed out is, unfortunately, increased pressure and threat and harassment against researchers, journalists, politicians, and opinion leaders. And that is warning signs. We need to have critical thinkers in society in order to help us think of new ways of doing things, and to share different perspectives. And that's what we're aiming to do here, is bring all of you from different countries together. And also something to think about is, who is responsible for protecting, defending societal security? We often think about it's the state who's responsible for doing that. But we often forget that there are other parts of society as well. The state should provide the foundation for defending societal security. But there are other parts in society, community groups, like Adrian was talking about. We have private businesses, and as well, we as individuals have a responsibility. So societal security is an issue for everyone, based on your own abilities, your own opportunities, your own experiences. We all need to come together and contribute to societal security. And hopefully this insight, being able to see and understand what values that need to be protected, that you see how you can contribute to it. And it can be anything from being critical to the information that you consume and that you share. And also, one important thing is, just you being here is also a sign. Being part of this political CU dialogue, you are promoting societal security. You have agreed to kind of step outside of your comfort zone and to share different ideas. And by doing this, when you open a conversation and willing to share different ideas and cooperate over borders, that is how we create security, is by understanding each other. And I just wanted to bring it back to the Swedish Defense University, because that is what we do. That is our goal. We provide a meeting place for civilians and military and police working together for national and international security. And I wanted 2 more slides just to, I'm sure very few of you can speak Swedish, but basically this is a bench and it says, jag delar inte dina åsikter, men jag är beredd att dö för din rätt för dem. So basically it means I do not share your views, but I'm prepared to die for your right to express them. And I just wanted to leave you with one perhaps comical but inspiring and very true message here. Here we have a family from the Stone Age, and I have a quote that I found in the Swedish newspaper that I keep on the refrigerator kind of as a reminder for myself. It says basically, if during the Stone Age, if the teenagers listened to everything that their parents said, we would still be in the Stone Age. So now this is your job as the youth. Our generation made the world a little bit better, a little bit stronger, and it's your job to critically think, push, and make sure that we preserve what we have and make it even a better and safer world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. That was also really, really good. Again, all the applause, I'm sure. And yes, so this is also the opportunity for all of you to turn your cameras on to join us. Adrian is here, Stephanie is here. We want to hear from you. We want you to ask questions, let us know what you think. Raise your hand, for example, or just think a bit about what we just heard. And I think Carolina has a question.
Yes, I really like the statement, think globally, act locally. Do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
All right, I have a question. How to involve other people to change, to participate in projects like this?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I mean, I don't know if Stephanie or Adrian also have a view from their experience. Otherwise, I can, from my point of view, say that, yeah, you being here and maybe telling your friends about it, and yeah, sometimes it is projects that are a bit more playful. We also want to have this competitive component, so not only playful and interesting. So we hope it will be fun and exciting. So this, from my point of view, is of course nice to tell and share with them. But then, of course, I think Adrian, for example, worked with you, had this project, so he might have a experience as well.
Yes, so from my point of view, that the biggest challenge when it comes to the involvement of young people in such projects is that they do not have knowledge that actually such projects exist. In my career for many years, I was traveling with my colleagues to schools. And organizing, for example, an information session about the Youth in Action, currently Erasmus Plus program. So, for example, not many people know that the European Union provides opportunity, to finance, the international, youth exchanges, international trainings. I'm not talking about, the long-term Erasmus and so on program, but also about the short-term, like 1 week, 2 weeks programs between exchanges between different countries. I mean, the people really want to be involved in such projects, but they do not have information about that. You need to. I mean, it was a very difficult, for us. But the only way for us was to find these people, to travel to schools, to have sessions, to find, among them, find the people which are really interested in the topic, and maybe invite them to the workshop we are organizing, to take them together with us abroad. A lot of them are really worried about the money, and I fully understand that. It's really, I mean, I was personally afraid about the cost. I was living in the cheapest dormitory during my studies in Warsaw, but because of that, I wanted to find, what are the foreign financing possibilities, to have such international mobility. And I wanted, to also spread the knowledge to others, because I found this knowledge.
If I could jump in, and because I think actually one thing with COVID is now even before COVID, we had the opportunity with internet, and now we've broken another mental barrier. The fact that we're all sitting here together is testimony to that. So here we have many opportunities. We don't have to travel, and we can make small steps by just inviting a few people in for a conversation. And often it's kind of that chain reaction. It isn't very often that you first jump. I didn't end up here in Sweden just like that. It was through, just like with Adrian, it's through a chain of events, small things that you do, small connections, and you have to start somewhere. And you have the opportunity now with this forum, and also by looking at the Swedish Defense University, and we also have CBSS. And actually, the Swedish Defense University and CBSS were working on an Erasmus program together. And we have now in the spring an intensive study program. So those of you who are at the university level, either as bachelor's or master students, there's the opportunity for you to participate and apply to join us for that. So utilize these digital tools and social media to make contacts, because that's where it starts. Small steps, baby steps. Thank you.
Perfect, yes. I hope that answered your question a bit, Carolina. And then I see two more, maybe starting with Daria and then
Hello, my name is Daria Larionov, and first of all, I would like to thank you for organizing this amazing dialogue. I sincerely think that it's a very nice opportunity to connect with my peers and to discover something new about Baltic region. I'm from Moldova, currently living in Sweden, and I have my first question for Mr. Bucałowski, if I'm saying that right. Also, I would like to mention that yes, Erasmus programs actually have also short-term programs, not just for 1 year or 2 years, maybe for a few weeks. And so my question is, you actually mentioned Euro-Baltic program for civil protection. Are those just, and you also said that there were some projects developing in the framework of this program. Are those just intergovernmental programs? Can other states be involved, not only those which make part of the organization? And are those, if there are projects, if projects exist which involve actually youth? Thank you. And my other question will go to Stephanie, and sorry, I will better just mention questions first of all. Stephanie, how do you actually think youth can promote social security? Does it necessarily involve youth creating some non-governmental organizations, or can youth part of citizens involved in promoting societal security? What makes youth different from other citizens? I hope I was clear on my questions. Sorry for bubbling a little bit. So thank you.
Thank you, Daria. So maybe to Adrian first about the program and projects and how even from not participating.
Yes, thank you, Daria. The answer is not very easy, to be honest with you. The issue is that within the Council of the Baltic Sea States, we want to focus even more on the volunteers and including youth. We are just about to start the very first seminar that might lead to a network, the Council of the Baltic Sea States network of the volunteering organizations for the civil protection. So actually, the possibilities for the young people, can, within the framework of the Council of the Baltic Sea States, can appear in the future. When it comes to involvement of non-CBSS countries into the projects, actually the projects I was talking to you about were mostly linked to these 11 states of the Council of the Baltic Sea States, but not all of them. As for example, the firing project, so the project about finding the needs of firefighters and finding the innovative solutions. It was a pan-European project that also involve foreign countries. For example, Poland actually has a cooperation with Moldova, with Moldovan authorities of the civil protections. We are doing a project from the Polish Ministry of Foreign Affairs funds, in order to train the Moldovan firefighters. And I know that many other countries also take such kind of the initiatives. There are many initiatives within the European Union that also focus on developing the volunteer. As you might know, and all the colleagues, there is an initiative called Eastern Partnership, which is the EU initiative, actually developed by Poland and Sweden in its very origin. It's a series of it's a cooperation between the European Union and the 6 countries of the beneficiaries of the Eastern Partnership: Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Moldova, Georgia, Ukraine. I hopefully mentioned all the 6, and they are projects within them. And for example, what is very important for young people is that Moldova is also partner of so-called exchange of experts program in the civil protection. If you search the exchangeofexperts.eu, you might find a website which also provides the international mobility for the people involved in the civil protection, whether these are professionals or volunteers. And yes, Moldova can also be a part of such kind of exchanges. So not within the CBSS framework, but within the EU framework, it is possible.
And then
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for your question. Yes, youth are unique in many ways. You are full of energy, you have more time, you're critical thinkers, and that is definitely an asset when we have to think innovatively and to think new moving forward. So I've written down that youth are good at taking initiatives. We older people sometimes think too much inside the box. So I encourage you young people to question us and to think of new ideas, new solutions. Also, you can get involved with different community groups. In Sweden, there's a lot of different types of organizations you can get involved with. You can volunteer, and it doesn't have to be in a formal sense. When I was young, I was helping immigrants learn English, And to me, that was also one way of strengthening my toolbox, having a wider perspective, and also you're getting connections and a deeper understanding. So it doesn't have to be big dramatic things, it can be small things. And I also just want to point out the fact, and I'm apologies if it looks like there are a lot of young women here, and to me that is also very promising. We need more women to be discussing these issues, because unfortunately until now it's been from a male perspective, and now we need to add a gender perspective to things as well. So that's one way of contributing, and it can be done in a positive way, because thinking about gender is beneficial for both women and men. Men don't always, they sometimes get the short end of the stick as well. And again, by having a more equal society for men, women, boys and girls, and of different transgender, and also of different ethnic groups, that makes us stronger, because a society is only as strong as its weakest link. And if we leave somebody behind, then we are not strong as societies. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Totally agree with you on the point about women. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Daria, for the question. Thank you both for the answers. And you're all so amazing. There are so many more questions. Great. If you stick with us, let's go with Silva next.
Hello. So thank you for the opportunity to participate in this dialogue. And my question is, I guess for both speakers, is there a way in which the Baltic Sea countries can help each other when it comes to cyber threats or the cyber world, so to speak? And if there is, then how does it work?
Thank you for that question. Both speakers, Adrian, Stephanie, do we have any takers?
That is a difficult, Adrian, I don't know if you want me to start. I have colleagues here at the Swedish Defense University, and of course they are very much so working with cybersecurity. But if you look down at the individual level, it's again about being critical to the different sources and thinking about what you share, what you post in terms of that. But you're maybe talking more about technical cyber attacks, or are you talking more about information campaigns?
I'm thinking about the overall security of countries when it comes to the cyber world. So, for example, I don't even know how to phrase this correctly, but sort of how to keep the governmental information within the particular country and not let it go somewhere else where it shouldn't be.
From my point of view, I mean, there is no like the very, special dedicated solution in this area. I mean, there is a only solution that actually, fits every, aspect and every sector, not only cybersecurity, is to actually exchange the knowledge and the experience, So the issue with the cybersecurity is that, it's a quite new area. The threats are developing very fast. There are very new ways let's say malicious activities of the people in the cyberspace. And if you provide the platforms, for the quick exchange of these experiences, quick exchange of this knowledge between the countries, I mean, the quicker it will be, the more effective it will be. The good example, which is not related to the cybersecurity, but actually shows, how the countries can really quickly cooperate, is actually so-called child alert. I'm not sure if you are aware of it, But for example, in Poland, when the child is missing, and the police authorities found out that the child, she could be, transferred, trafficked, abroad, there is an immediate cooperation between police authorities, the alerts are sent immediately, to the media, to other authorities, they can very easily, the foreign counterparts can very easily react and so on. So it's an example of, the very quick and swift, response. And, there are so many activities, that actually the only way, for the countries to be better prepared is, to exchange the knowledge about the threats, about the new ways of, of preventing, such kind of threats, of increasing the cybersecurity. It's a very relevant also to, to this critical infrastructure, which I told you about, which is very prone to, to such kind of threats. And there is also like new international law in the field. For example, there are works on the new EU directive called NIS2 and NIS2, which deals with the cybersecurity. There is also a new directive on the critical entities resilience. So actually, there is an international law which will impose certain obligations when it comes also to the, let's say, cyber protection, but also, I mean, the normal, exchange of information would be relevant and would be, the best way actually to increase resilience to cyber threats. The issue is that sometimes it requires, the transfer of the classified informations. So I believe, that having, some kind of safe platforms of exchange of such knowledge between the responsible authorities in all the countries would actually help, to transfer such kind of knowledge.
All right, thank you.
Yes, thank you also from me again for question and answers. The time's going so quickly. So 3 more questions. Louisa.
Yes, thank you for interesting lectures and for a chance to participate in this all. And I actually have 2 questions. One is concerning the changes that happened over these 30 years in Baltic Sea regions in security system. I would like to ask, what are the main trends? What spheres are the most emphasized currently? What spheres are the most founded or became more founded over 30 years? And the second one, it's more concerning cooperation from the Russian side, because as far as I know, the peak of cooperation with the Russian Federation was in 2000, and then it has witnessed somehow decline. So I would like to ask, is it true? Or maybe it's only maybe in some defense system, and in ecosphere it's absolutely fine.
Thank you for your question. I put in the chat, the UK Ministry of Defense puts out a very extensive report regarding global trends. It gives you really a comprehensive overview. Of course, it's from the UK perspective, but I think they look into the future to 2050, I think. But it gives you a good idea about some of the things that we can be anticipating. And from a point of view, I think one of the biggest concerns for security, in my opinion, for the Baltic Sea region is climate change. We don't know how that's going to affect us. We see that we're going to have a depletion of resources. We're going to have increased conflicts due to the scarcity of resources. So there's a lot of things we don't know about, and for me that's a big uncertainty, and that is going to, unfortunately, I think, test a lot of these cooperations that we have. That's why it's so important that we have a dialogue and we discuss with each other, because we're only as strong as our neighbors. and our allies. We need to rely on each other. And unfortunately, when there's a scarcity of resources, we tend to look inwards. And the pandemic, unfortunately, has shown us that as well. So we should try to preserve that as well moving forward.
Okay, from my point of view, the risks which are high in the agenda recently, these are, for example, forest fires. We have thought about forest fires as a problem of the southern European countries, but 2018 showed that the problem might also, appear very, to a very wide extent in the northern Europe. And 2018 was the year when both Sweden and Latvia requested international assistance when it comes to forest fires. For sure, hybrid threats also related to this, technological development, being internet dependent, and so on. They are very high in the agenda currently. Pandemics, definitely, these viruses and so on seems to be underestimated in the past. Now, the situation is very clear that it's one of the most, impacting kind of a risk we have. For example, I can tell you that, we had quite a lot of experience. I mean, the International Civil Protection Committee had a lot of experience with Ebola. For example, in 2015, around 2015, there was an Ebola, epidemic in the Africa. We focused very much on, preventing, the spread of such kind of virus, to Europe. But the problem is that we were focusing on the very serious, virus. But the virus that only infects other people when the person who infects actually shows some symptoms of being infected. And we were not really prepared for the virus that is maybe not, that do not provide so many fatalities, but it's actually very tricky, because can infect other people without having really symptoms and so on. So it was underestimated. Now it's really high in the agenda. And I would like to answer also your question about the Russia, and I'm very glad to have Russian colleagues also with us here today. Privet to all of you. From Polish perspective, we had a great cooperation with Russia in the past. Actually, also the Baltic Sea cooperation started with the involvement of the Russian colleagues. We have a bilateral agreement on mutual cooperation and more, a wider approach to civil protection between Poland and Russia. Of course, there are geopolitical tensions in recent times, but believe me, the rescue services, we are the people who do not only see, the great politics, and we do believe, that there will be even better opportunities, for cooperation between the countries in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We definitely want to take both Susa's and Simona's questions. Because time is a bit short now, maybe we can take them together so that Susa, you ask yours first and Simona, and then we get the answers. If that's okay.
All right, thank you very much. I'm Zuza, I'm also from Poland. And first of all, I wanted to thank you for being able to participate in such inspiring and interesting lecture. And my question is for Mr. Bucałowski. It's quite a specific question, but is the State Fire Service or any other rescue center that you are connected to involved to the current situation at the Poland-Belarus border?
Perfect, thank you. And then Simona, your question?
Yes, hello. Thank you for this evening. It has been very interesting. My question would be more about, we have heard so many examples of cooperation in the Baltic Sea region, and I was wondering maybe you could share if you know some good examples from other regions of the world that could be applied in the Baltic Sea region.
That's a great question. to Adrian, please, if you don't mind.
Yes. Well. Okay. So when it comes to to the situation at the border with the Belarus, for those of you who do not know, there is a migratory pressure on the border between Poland, Belarus, but also this migratory pressure relates, to the at least Lithuania and from maybe some other countries, for sure Lithuania. The state fire service, the rescue services are not involved into management of this crisis, to be honest with you. The only thing is that my headquarters, the building which I'm in it, is also the Polish contact center, the operational center for the Union Civil Protection Mechanism. And when Lithuania is actually a country that requested international assistance, to provide some humanitarian assistance to refugees at the border between Lithuania and Belarus. And although it was not my country that it was not my institutions that provided the humanitarian assistance, but actually Poland provided this assistance to Lithuania, but it was developed, it was arranged by other institutions, by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the government agency for strategic resources, Rządowa Agencja Rezerw Strategicznych. So here how it looks like. Civil protection. The fire brigade is definitely not involved into management of this crisis. When it comes to examples from other regions, then relevant to the Baltics region, it's a difficult question because, for example, in one of the slides, I mentioned you that there is something which is called the European Union strategy for the Baltic Sea region, but it's one of several macro-regional strategies relating to the different, regions of the Europe. For example, there is a strategy for Danube region. There are some strategies relating to the, southern country. And to be honest with you, I know that we are one of the leaders. Our region is one of the leaders when it comes, to the cooperation in this safe and secure region. So it's very difficult for me to, to find the good examples. The Europe and our part is, of course, not the only. We have really good solutions, but not the only ones. For example, the Asia, they also have, the so-called EHA center. So it's the cooperation within the ASEAN, and they can also, mutually assist each other. And of course, we have a very good relations with other countries, when it comes to exchange of knowledge. For example, when it comes to the critical infrastructure protections, there are annual meetings between the European Union and the United States and Canada. So yeah, we are mutually learning from each other, and this is how it looks like.
Thank you very much for your answer to my question.
Yes, thank you. It was very interesting.
Thank you. And Stephanie, did you also have any answer to the second question, other regions examples?
Not more than Adrian said. We were talking earlier actually today about the Arctic Council as a cooperation, and we had an earlier workshop today, Franziska and I, and we were talking actually about different cooperations in the area, in the EU, in the Baltic Sea, in the Arctic. And there are so many different types of cooperations, it's almost difficult to keep track of all of them. But I think that the fact that this part of the world unfortunately has experienced war from World War II and also during the occupation of the Soviet Union, that there is a very strong understanding that we need to talk, we need to have dialogue in order to avoid conflict. So there's a strong commitment to cooperation, definitely in this region. And of course, there, I'm sure elsewhere in the world, I just unfortunately can't think of any right now.
That speaks for our region, I hope. At this point, I would say thank you all so much for the questions, for being here. Big applause to Adrian and Stephanie again for the great and inspiring input and answers. So yes, please, from all of us. And it also seems, I hope I didn't kind of killed any last questions that there might have been still. But yeah, time flies if you're having fun. Otherwise, let us of course know of your questions in the next days as well, and we'll meet again tomorrow on the next topic and on Saturday. So I'm excited to meet you all again, to have you, and thank you for today.